There are so many exotics in Destiny 2, but some of them are way more popular than others. So in this video, I'll go over the 10 most popular exotic weapons in Season of the Wish. And be sure to stick around to the end of the video because some of these might surprise you. I'm Marshix, and all of these percentages come from Destiny Tracker. And keep in mind, there are a lot of Destiny players, so a weapon with even just 1% usage rate is very high. Coming in at number 10 is Graviton Lance. This is a 2-round burst pulse rifle that creates massive explosions with every kill. And these explosions can chain, so if anything dies from the explosion, they will explode too. And again until there's nothing left to kill. And you don't have to do anything special. Just shoot one enemy and you'll usually get some insane multi-kills. This makes it one of the best ad clearing weapons in the game, and not too long ago, this got a 67% damage buff in PvE, so it's also really strong against majors too. So it's obvious why this is so popular, but it isn't as popular as Monte Carlo. This auto rifle gives you melee energy whenever you deal damage with it, and final blows have a chance to instantly refill your melee charge back to full. This is already great, allowing you to create some really strong melee builds, but it gets even better. This also has Markov Chain. This increases your damage with each kill, up to 5 stacks, and it gives you full stacks with just a single melee kill. This is basically Swashbuckler, but better because you get more damage with each stack, up to a 65% damage buff, which is one of the highest in the game. But that's not all, because it also has a catalyst that gives it an alternate mode. With 5 stacks of Markov Chain, you can lock in the bayonet. This deals more damage than a normal melee, it gives you melee energy whether you get a kill or not, and it works with some melee buffs and exotic armor, like Banner of War, Synthoceps, and Wormgod Caress for extra damage, Khepri Sting for infinite smoke bombs with True Sight, Karnstein Armlets for restoration, and even Necrotic Grips for poison. There's a lot to love about this weapon, so it makes sense that this is one of the most popular weapons in the game. But it's not as good as this next weapon, which can melt bosses. But first, this video is sponsored by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you can pick from a variety of meal options. Then in less than a week, you'll receive a box full of fresh ingredients to make your food. HelloFresh offers over 100 options every week, including breakfast, lunch, dinner, and more. Just customize your box to make it perfect for you. And not only does it taste incredible, it's also very easy to make, with their simple and concise recipes that anyone can follow, even Destiny players. I've been using HelloFresh for over a year now, and I've genuinely enjoyed every single meal. Especially this one that I just got. It's creamy cilantro steak bowls, and it's really good. And we all know breakfast is the most important meal of the day, which is why HelloFresh is giving all subscribers free breakfast for life. All you have to do is click the link in the description or use my code and you'll get free breakfast for life. That's one free breakfast item per box while your subscription's active. Who doesn't love free food? Try it now, I know you'll enjoy, and you don't want to miss out on that massive deal. Thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. The number 8 most popular weapon is Malfeasance. This hand cannon deals a lot of damage and can even melt champions and bosses with ease. When an enemy is hit by this weapon 5 times, it will create a small explosion that deals more damage and stuns unstoppable champions. On top of that, it has a catalyst that gives it Vorpal Weapon, which for hand cannons is a passive 20% damage buff against bosses and vehicles. So not only can it stun champions, it can also put out some pretty good damage. And you can increase this damage even more with Lucky Pants. Pulling out a kinetic hand cannon gives you a buff for 10 seconds. While this buff is active, each shot will increase the damage of your next shot, up to 600% more damage, which is crazy. And because Malfeasance has the fastest firing archetype, this can get 10 stacks very quickly and take advantage of the full buff for longer than any other hand cannon. If it wasn't obvious by the gameplay, 7 times damage on an already strong exotic is kinda busted. Even able to put out really high damage against raid bosses. And there's more. This also has a perk called Taken Predator, which makes it deal more damage to taken enemies, but this actually has a unique interaction with the next weapon on our list, Wither Horde. This is a kinetic grenade launcher that creates pools of taken goo, dealing damage over time to anything inside. This makes it great for spawn trapping doorways or just clearing out a cluster of ads. If you hit an enemy directly, this will also cause damage over time, but they don't have to be standing in the pool. This makes it a great sub DPS option too, since you can shoot a boss with this, then swap to your heavy weapon to deal your main damage. You still get the damage from your heavy, and anything from Wither Horde is just a bonus on top of that. This also gets auto-loading holster with its catalyst, meaning you can shoot this, DPS with your heavy, then swap back to reapply Wither Horde before it runs out, and then back to your heavy. Now, remember when I said this works with Malfeasance? Since this applies Blight to its target, Malfeasance counts them as a taken enemy, meaning anything hit by Witherhoard will take more damage from Malfeasance, whether they're taken or not. So if you're ever using Malfeasance with Lucky Pants in a raid, be sure to force someone else to use Witherhoard for optimal damage. Although, optimal damage usually includes 5 Apex Predators and a Gallahorn, which just so happens to be number 6 on this list. Gallahorn is a support rocket launcher, as weird as that sounds. First of all, this gets 2 rockets per reload, and those rockets create Wolfpack rounds whenever they explode. These Wolfpack rounds will track down enemies, making it great for ad clear, and against bosses, they add a bit more damage. But Gallahorn is no longer the DPS king like it was in D1. Instead, it has Pack Hunter, giving nearby allies Wolfpack rounds on their legendary rockets. So with this, rockets like Apex Predator that can already deal a lot of damage can deal even more. And you can apply this buff to your whole team, so if 5 people are already using legendary rockets, just have the 6th person throw in a Gallahorn to give everyone Wolfpacks. Also, this is just the most fun rocket launcher to use, and it's definitely the most iconic, so it pretty much always makes the top 10. Okay, coming in at number 5 is Quicksilver Storm. This is a kinetic auto rifle that occasionally shoots out micro rockets. Hits with these rockets will load a grenade, and you can see how many grenades you have with the 3 circles on the reticle. At any time, you can hold the reload button to swap to a grenade launcher mode, and you can shoot the grenades you had loaded for a burst of damage. Now, this is already pretty strong, but the catalyst makes it even better. This will turn it into a strand weapon, and final blows can create tangles too, so it's especially strong in strand builds. Overall, it's a solid primary and tons of fun to use, so it makes sense why it's on this list. Up next is Wishender. This bow deals a lot of damage per shot. It has wall hacks, and it has intrinsic anti-barrier. This makes it the best bow for high level content, being able to one-shot most things in GMs, and still take down champions at the same time. There's not much more to say, it's just a really strong bow. The only downside is that you can't use anti-barrier and unstoppable rounds, but that's fine because we have this next weapon for unstoppables. Now we're getting into the top 3 and there's a pretty big jump in usage, going from less than 2% up to 3% of all players. And for good reason, because the next weapon is Polaris Lance. If you haven't played in a while, this will be a surprise to you, but Polaris Lance is really strong right now. This weapon has infinite ammo as long as you get crits, and landing 4 precision hits will make the 5th shot explode. This applies Scorch, and with the help of Kindling Trigger as well as Ember of Ashes, every one of these perfect 5th shots will create an ignition, dealing massive damage to everything around it and opening up some really strong ignition builds. It also helps to use artifact mods like Flint Striker to make you always radiant, and raise the precision to create even more ignitions with Polaris Lance. And if you didn't know, ignitions stun unstoppable champions, meaning this is very, very strong in Nightfalls or any other activity with champions. Ignitions also stagger enemies, so if you can get headshots, you can stun lock most bosses, and they'll pretty much just stand there and let you shoot them. And another weapon that can easily stun lock bosses is number 2, Dragon's Breath. This exotic rocket launcher runs on fuel. Fuel regenerates over time, and the more fuel you have, the more damage it deals. This deals damage over time similar to Witherhoard, but it's even better because it's a heavy weapon. It also applies Scorch to whatever it hits, and with max fuel, it applies enough Scorch to trigger an ignition by itself. This also reloads itself whenever it reaches max fuel, so you can shoot this at a boss, pop your super or swap weapons to deal damage while you're waiting for it to reload itself, then swap back and shoot it again. And if you're able to trigger more ignitions with your abilities, this will refuel it faster, allowing you to shoot it much more often, which is why I love using this with Apotheosis Veil. Just shoot, pop your super, spam abilities, shoot, spam abilities, shoot, spam abilities. It's a lot of fun and tons of explosions. This next exotic surprised me because just a few months ago, this was at less than 1% usage. Now it's almost at 4% of all players. But you'll have to leave a like on the video to see what it is. Okay, this exotic is Sunshot. Sunshot is the only 150 RPM hand cannon in the game, and kills with this weapon cause enemies to explode on death. These explosions chain to nearby enemies, just like Graviton Lance, meaning one shot can usually lead to multiple kills. Also, as of Lightfall, explosions from Sunshot apply Scorch, making it really strong in all solar builds. This means it works with Ember of Searing for melee energy and fire sprites, Ember of Singeing for class ability energy, and even Sol Invictus to create sunspots. And similar to Polaris Lance, this benefits from all the solar artifact mods for even more synergy with solar builds. I even used it to solo flawless the new dungeon, and it made it so much easier. Sunshot is so good right now, and it definitely deserves the title of the most popular weapon in Season of the Wish. Now do yourself a favor and watch this video. I know you'll enjoy. Thanks for watching, I'm Marshix, and I'll see you next time. And be sure to check out HelloFresh in the description for a great deal on great food.